Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. A bit of an odd one today. Not only am I by myself, but I'm taking the time to do a spoiler-ridden, deeper thought review on a movie in the middle of the week. May has an extra Tuesday, so which kind of works out. This weekend I finally got the opportunity to go see Evil Dead Rise, which, if you've been following my content, was a most anticipated for the year. My other one, of course, was Scream 6. So I finally got to see this. I went to a theater. I took a half day from work, went to see it. And the theater experience itself had a couple of glitches. There were some moments where like the lights randomly wouldn't go off. And then there's like the room that the camera or the projector rather is in, and there's like a light in that room, and that was on during like in the middle of the movie. But other than that, so I made a shirt for the occasion. I've been complaining for quite some time. I'm tired of horror shirts only coming in black. I have a ton of black shirts and I'm over it. So I made an obnoxiously bright one. So my general thoughts for this film is I was left pretty underwhelmed. And before anyone like unfollows or starts angrily typing in the comments, I did not hate this film by any stretch of the imagination, but it will be helpful for you to know that going forward with this review, I'm putting this up against 2013. And it may also be helpful to know that I'm not a really big Evil Dead fan. I don't like horror comedy. I don't really like campy horror. And what's true is the original Evil Dead, while yes, it has become that, I don't necessarily think it was meant to be that originally. But it just was so over the top, and that's pretty much how it became perceived. And then, the franchise just like went into full on camp after that. And it's just not my thing. So those don't make any top lists for me. I don't rewatch them ever. They're not my cup of tea. But then I saw 2013 in theaters, and it was like life-changing for all kinds of reasons. So that's kind of where I'm at headspace-wise going into a review for Evil Dead Rise, which may be helpful for you as a viewer to know. So here we go. Essentially, Okay, I'm going to try to break it down in the most logical path. The beginning of this film is the strongest part of the entire movie. The opening scene is everything I wanted everything else to be. It was unsettling. It had some crazy body horror. The really cool shot, over the lake. And can we like that title card? That's one of the best placed title cards I've ever seen in a horror movie, ever. So I loved all of that. And going into that, after that, I was like, bet. Like I was in. And so we get into like the next part of the movie, which is where we learn about, the background of the sisters and the family, and they're reunited because the rock starry, they call her a groupie, literally 100 million times in the movie. It stops being funny after the fifth. She finds out that she's pregnant and she's terrified because it's a mistake. And so she goes to see her sister who has 3 kids, and she's so out of touch with her sister. She has no idea that her sister has to move in 30 days because the building is going to be knocked down. Nor does she know that the sister's husband / baby daddy has fled the coop. And so, just kind of getting some background on them. We get these really great shots of the siblings interacting together, which was really nice. Getting individual shots of them and their personalities, and then getting to see how they interact together as a family, which of course is setting us up for the story, right? Because I went into this knowing, everyone's talking about the gore, not hearing very many people talk about the story. And it's like, I get that the gore is like the crazy, right? It's supposed to be over the top, but I need it to serve a purpose. I need it to matter. I need to care about the people the gore is happening to. Otherwise, I just can't get behind it. I'm not a mindless gore fan. So yeah, we get these really cool shots of the family. We get a better understanding of their relationship and kind of what's been going on, why they're estranged, what's going on in both of their lives. There's an earthquake that cracks the parking deck of where they live in the apartment complex and opens this big gaping hole, which the teenager, the oldest, goes into to find a bunch of like leftover bank stuff, because they talk about it early on that it was built over a bank, which is just setting us up to make this scene make sense, even though I don't really think it still made sense. And he essentially finds our Necronomicon, our Book of the Dead, and there's crosses all over the place. There's this giant crucifix with Jesus, like a Jesus statue on it, a whole nine. He takes it up. They take it with them. The son takes it with him. They go back upstairs, and essentially he's like he's doing turntables and DJing, and so there's also records connected to this. So he plays the records, and that's when things kind of get really crazy. We get this really interesting shot in an elevator of the mom being wrapped up in elevator cables, which of course is reminiscent of the molesty tree from the other Evil Dead films. And but thankfully did not go in the same direction. All of this looks great. I'm still super invested at this point. I'm like, oh wow, this looks crazy. She's getting the whispers. The sound design in this was really top notch, because a lot more whispering and the moving noises and things that you don't that are in some of the other ones, but not in the same way. You know, her earring gets ripped out. Like that was like, ooh. So that was all really, really good. Then she comes in and we get this weird scene of her like putting the skillet on, which I think this part is in the trailer because I've seen this clip before. And yeah, essentially after this, we think that she dies. She tells the sister, the last thing she says before she collapses is, don't let it take, they're in me. Don't let them take my babies rather. She's got 3 kids. And she's like, oh my God. So we think that she dies. After this initial setup, a lot of the shots are things that are in the trailer. So we get the bathtub scene, the doorbell scene. One thing that we get through the doorbell that I laughed incessantly at, because this was so over the top and silly, was there's like all of this mayhem happening, and the viewpoint is just looking through the door, the peephole in the door. And I said doorbell, I meant people. And it's interesting because like the shot itself is neat, right? It's unique. It gives us a separation, so there's not everything just happening in the apartment. It gives us a breakup in that way, but you know, we see the mom get shot, and when she's shot, she goes like flying back, and it's just so, it made me laugh. I couldn't help but laugh. So a couple of things that happen after this is the sister, Bridget, gets infected. And, you know, in the past, I don't know what you'd call them, the spin-off Deadites, not the main one, but the extras that come into play, don't talk. They're just very like twitchy, and they make weird noises and they do weird things. I think there's a reason for that, because in this one, the Deadites talk and they say a lot of stuff. And one of my biggest things in typical possession films, which of course this is a little more different in that regard, but is that when they write the things for these demonic entities to make human beings say, it's like a child that was given permission to cuss, where they just say things and you're just like, you sound ridiculous. Like, and so that is exactly how I felt about this, the Deadites talking. I hated it. They said the same things over and over again. It wasn't scary. It wasn't like, it didn't make me unsettled. I was just like, oh, this is so cringe. It's not great. I hated that they talked. I think it would have been far more foreboding if they were not able to speak. That part just like really bothered me. That was one of my biggest complaints about the film. So, you know, moving forward, the sister gets infected. They think they've killed her. They haven't. We start getting the background. I'm not going to go plot for plot because the intention is to keep this video kind of short. But this is when we do the typical Evil Dead thing where we start going back to the book and we start making references and we learn about all these things, and they talk about, oh, there's 3 books and this is what I did, and these are all the bad things that happened, and they can't be stopped except through bodily dismemberment, blah, blah, blah. Things we already know because we've already seen this happen to other people, but we have to reintroduce it for the story, which I'm not really complaining about. I will say this, noting the book looks amazing. It reminds me of the book from HP, like the Beast, Fantastic Beast book. Anyway, that was really cool, and the pages, the illustrations, the cool like way to add the vinyl to the equation and talking it. I thought that was all really really nicely done. No complaints there. The acting of the kids was super on point, minus the lines of the Deadites, but that's not an acting thing. That's just bad writing. I said what I said, and so everything just goes to shit after this. It's one of those things where it's like, this is kind of this is another pretty stereotypical thing in an Evil Dead movie. Now we're in like the thick of it, right? And so what was interesting was we got the there's like a neighbor that has a cat that gets into the vent system. And so what was funny was I immediately assumed we were going to see that cat die a horrible death, and that's why they introduced it. But they introduced it because the mom figures out, she hears the cat, so she goes up into this and she's able to get back into the apartment. That is by far one of the creepiest. I've got another one I'm going to go back to. That's one of the creepiest moments in the entire film, is when the sister is sitting in front of the setup and she's listening and she's trying to listen for ways to end this, to save them, to fix it. And you just see over in the background, you just see the vent thing fall down, and you see the mom come out and she's like climbing on the wall. That was so creepy. That part had me so on edge. That was so well done. The other part that I thought for some reason was really creepy was after she climbs out of the bathtub and they're all outside in the hall in the other parts of the apartment. There's this sideways shot. Look at the cinematography, and this is really well done as well. There's this sideways shot where you're looking at the door frame of the bathroom, and she just sticks her face out and smiles and like turns. I don't know why that got me. I was so creeped out by that. But yeah, so essentially, after all of this happens, the only two that make it out of the apartment alive is Cassie, the youngest daughter, and Beth, the sister. And this is when it starts, because I love the use of the book in the sense that we flip through the pages and we get to see what's going to happen next, which is something they also did before. That's not a new thing. So this happens, and it shows this like, there's this weird scene in the hallway where all of the people that she killed in the hallway are like back to life, and they're saying dead by dawn, and it just was so cheesy. I just kid. It was not eerie or unsettling or anything. But then there's this scenes where they're the kids and the other, I guess it's the others. I'm not really sure if it's just the kids or not. They go up to the mother who's now missing part of a leg and an arm, and they all basically go into her, and they become this like weird mixed up monster. Which I hated. I absolutely hated that entire premise. And I get it, family, they're all together, whatever, sure. I hated it. Worst part of the whole movie for me, next to the way the Deadites spoke when they spoke too much. So I think that was like a huge weakness for me. I was like, I don't like that. I just didn't like it. So they get ready to go into the elevator, Beth and Cassie, and the elevator fills up with blood. It can only hold so much weight, so it crashes and it opens into this very Shining-esque moment where the elevator doors burst open and blood just shoots out of them. They get into the parking garage. They're trying to escape. And of course the congealed monster gets down there, and you think like they've got the gate open to leave, and Beth and Cassie are hurrying towards it. They both get under, and at the last minute, the monster grabs Cassie's leg and yanks her back in, and Beth is stuck on the other side of this now closed gate. And then, she beats out a part of it, gets back in, goes over, and we get this weird, like, this again, they go back to calling the sister a groupie whore. It's too much. Like, I feel like, right, okay, so my belief, I don't really have like a belief system that I follow, but here's the thing. I feel like if demons were real and they were wreaking this sort of havoc on human beings, on the world, I feel like they would be intelligent enough to just say better things, to be insulting in a different way, to say more foreboding things. And we get a couple of things like the sister, the mom, the one that's now congealed into this like 3-person thing, says, like, oh, you look just like mom and you're going to fail just like her. And so stuff like that, I love. I love when there's like this use of playing on emotions and things that are going on between the characters. I thought that was really great. No complaints there. But other than that, the dialogue is choppy at best. So she gets the monster's attention away from Cassie, and she ends up putting them in a I actually don't know what this machine is called, a grinding machine. It kind of reminded me of the thing from 30 Days a Night. And so she gets them and she's pushing them, and all that remains is the mom's head, her sister's head. And she starts running her mouth, and that's when she says a bit about, oh, you're gonna fail just like mom, and she kicks it in, and she and Cassie get to leave. There's blood and guts everywhere. And this is in an apartment complex. So one of the things that I think was disappointing was one of the reasons that I was so excited to see it in a bigger scope outside of just a cabin was because of how many people could live there. But I think they framed it that it was being knocked down so there weren't many people there. But then that just kind of defeated what made it so exciting, that it was going to be like a lot more deadites, a lot more like people involved. We kind of didn't we kind of lost all of that. Also, there's a lot of shooting and screaming and noise and banging and an elevator breaking and a lot of stuff going on. So going back to the opening sequence of the 3 people that go away to the lake, the girl that is possessed in that scene, her name is Jess, and she was getting away with her boyfriend and I think her cousin, and they were supposed to have some other friends, but the other friends didn't show up. And then that shot ends in our title card with Jess coming out of the water floating, and then the sign behind her. Again, perfect. This girl comes out of her apartment, and I was like, that's going to be the girl from the beginning, which I wasn't mad about the tie-in. However, how did she not hear all of the stuff that was going on in this apartment for that entire night? Like, she just comes out on the phone and she goes down to the garage and she's ready for her vacay weekend. And then she sees the blood and gore and craziness. And then that's, of course, when she gets possessed. And then that's when she, that's the end of the movie. So I'm sure it sounds like I'm pretty humdrum about it. And I just didn't feel like it was that great. I feel like 2013 is still far supreme. And one of the things that I will say, was it absolutely gory? Sure. But all of the scenes that were built up to gore were very short-lived. And I'm not, the cheese grater is in the Twitter hashtag for this. And it is literally a 2-second moment of not like, it just happens one time. That's it. And it just felt like it amped up for all this gore. And I don't think that it had more gore than 2013. And I don't think that the gore in this was better or more unsettling than 2013. And I had posted about this on Twitter about, are we still ranking 2013 over Evil Dead Rise? Because I am. And Albert from Blood and Bruised, who's been on my channel before, and I've been on theirs, he said that one of the things he felt with 2013 Evil Dead was that it built up the moments and it forced you to focus on them. So you had this tension of the moment of having to watch this unfold, whereas everything in Evil Dead Rise was, it happened, it's over. It happened, it's over. Boom, 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 shot, shot, shot. And it just keeps moving. And that just, I just didn't think it was that. I didn't think that in the gore sense that it was that great. Now the movie looks good. I love the coloration of this film. I liked the setup for it. I love that we're back to siblings because I loved that about 2013. And I love that we completely went away altogether of having to introduce a possessed person to people who don't believe her. They've completely moved away from that because she is crazy when she comes back in and they all see it. And it goes straight into that, which I really, really liked because I get so sick of seeing female characters have bad things happen to them and no one believes them. I think that happens enough in real life, right? So like, I don't want that in my horror films. That's one of the reasons 2013 is so great to me, is because we added the whole storyline premise that Mia was a recovering drug addict. So of course no one believed her. So anyway, so I love that we just went like right in. I thought that was great. But yeah, overall, like, will I watch another Evil Dead movie? Sure. This had some really, really great things about it, but it just felt by the end of it, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, if I had to rate this out of 10, I don't know. I guess if I had to rate this out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 7. But so far, both of my most anticipated films for the year are not going to make my top for the year. I know they're not, because they underdelivered. So I'm really disappointed. I am proud though that the franchise, if you haven't seen this yet, Evil Dead Rise broke 100 million in the box office, which is great for the franchise, but it's really great for the world of horror, because I think what's happening is these bigger production companies are realizing that they should take chances on horror, that it does make money. And so I think that that's great. They did a great job for, I'm super thrilled about that. And I will watch another one whenever they do the next one. I'll totally watch it. Curious what this means for the world, because there was no one stopping the girl technically at the end of this one, because she rises up from the water and that's it. So curious to see what they do with that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Evil Dead Rise. I liked the setup, loved the opening scene, was good with the callback to the beginning, the way it ended. I thought that was really good. It looks great. It sounds great. But I was overall, I was disappointed by some of the decisions I think that were made as far as the direction they took. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Evil Dead Rise. Which I'm assuming very soon is going to be streaming. I have no idea. But thank you guys so much for watching this deep dive into Evil Dead for me. I not a big Evil Dead fan, but I loved 2013. And so I was really pumped about this one, and curious to see what else they do with the franchise. So hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.